Hello friends, James Stevenson here with a question. Have you ever read a news article and thought, that doesn't sound right, or that sounds too good to be true, or I think something is missing from this article. They're not telling me something important. That's because sometimes that's exactly what's going on. That feeling is telling you something important, and you may not be able to figure out on your own what context is missing from the article that would have made it more informative. Well, friends, Loki and I are here to help. So you see Loki is curled up in bed. He's going to let me do most of the talking in this video. But if he decides to eat his breakfast, you'll see that here in the Loki cam. I'll be over here talking about this article from Automotive News. Let me get rid of this banner ad at the bottom. And just read you this headline. Market comeback continues. Major automakers post strong Q3 sales gains. By what measure are they strong? So when these estimates come out for sales, I guess global data is the source Automotive News is using for this article. They're just a bunch of numbers, right? So how do you get comfortable with whether those numbers are good or bad? Well, you have to compare them against something and see, is it better than or worse than some comparison? And the thing that is traditional to compare against is prior year sales, right? So, or sequential sales, right? Which they do some of both in this article. But the table, well, let me read you this quote that I highlighted. Double-digit gains for many automakers signal the industry continues to rebound from the pandemic and microchip shortage. Are we still doing that, folks? The pandemic was 2020, the microchip shortage was 2021. Are we still talking about those being the key driver in 2023 for sales being better? I guess we are. So a little bit about UAW strike in here. It's a long article that's completely missing anything about Tesla. They don't bother mentioning Tesla once, apart from the big data table. That's the only place Tesla gets mentioned at all in this article. Let's scroll down and pay off that data table. So here it is. Let me try and line this up for you a little bit better. Fine. All right, so here's the U.S. light vehicle sales. What's light vehicle sales mean? It means regular cars and SUVs and pickup trucks, not commercial vehicles or semi-trucks or whatever. So the first three columns are talking about what happened only in Q3, so July, August, and September of this year in the 2023 column versus the same period in the prior year in this column. And then this column is giving you how much different the 2023 Q3 number is compared against the prior year same quarter. Is it up or is it down? If it's up, it's a positive number. If it's down, it's a negative percentage, right? But I'll be focusing on these last three columns instead, which are doing something similar. They say 9 MOS 2023, which is not how I would label a column. I would have said YTD 2023 or YTD Q3 2023 year to date. These are showing you January through September sales this year versus the prior year, same time period. And you can see they weren't kidding in the article. It is double digits growth for everybody if this is the comparison you do. If you say, hey, how good are these numbers compared against last year's numbers? Look how many strong double digit bright drop I'm laughing at. So when you see these percentages that are over 100%, look and see what the prior year number was. 146, right? Where's another one? Well, 91% here is up from 100 to 191. For Lucid, 68% is up 1,300 to 2,190. So, you know, a few thousand vehicles is what I would describe those both as. Rivian up from 9,700 to 36,200. That's not nothing, so Rivian's doing pretty well here. But what's funny is to look at something like Honda. Here's American Honda. Honda sales are up from 728 last year to 970 this year. That's exactly a 33.3% increase. So they're up by 1/3. You could be forgiven for looking at this table in isolation and saying Honda's killing it. What are they doing that makes them so great? They're just their sales are on fire. They are really selling a lot more cars now than they used to, is what you would think looking at only this information, right? Look at Q3, up 52.7%. It would be easy to draw that conclusion that Honda is really killing it, doing great. And then you compare that against, Tesla only up 42%. I mean, that's pretty good in this table of numbers, but it's nothing to write home about. It's not the biggest number on the page. We saw bigger ones from Rivian and from Lucid and from BrightDrop, right? So not that great, nothing to write about, and they didn't write it about Tesla in this article. Tesla was not mentioned in the article. Okay, so what's at the bottom line? 14.5% growth so far this year, up from about 9.9 million last year to 11.3 million this year. What's the missing context? The missing context is that 2022 was a terrible year. I'll take you to my thread and explain it to you. We saw the headline already. We saw this quote from the article about double-digit gains for many automakers already. What they don't mention is what an easy comparison 2022 should have been to beat, because all but one major automaker was down last year. Let me share this with you. This chart shows year-to-date Q3 2022 versus the prior year, versus last year's prior year, 2 years ago, 2021. How much was Tesla up from 2021 year-to-date Q3 to 2022 year-to-date Q3? Tesla was up 47%. How much were the rest of the automakers up? They were all down. All of them were down. The whole market was down last year versus the prior year. Everybody declined. Look at Honda. Honda was down 38% year-to-date Q3 2022 versus year-to-date Q3 2021. Then this year, we're supposed to be impressed that they're up by 33%. So some of you might be trying to do the math in your head and saying, well, down 38, up 33, they should only be down 5% versus 2021. You have done the math wrong. That is not how the math works, because the base changes from the first number to the second number. You have to update the base. And I'll give you as my example. Let's say Honda sold 100,000 cars. They sold way more than that, but for the sake of easy math, let's say they had sold 100,000 cars year-to-date Q1 2021, and then the following year, year-to-date Q3 2022, they declined 38%. How many cars would that be? It would be 62,000. So from 2022 to 2023, if they increase from 62,000, the new base, by 33%, that's only about 21,000 more vehicles, right? So 62 plus 21, 83,000. They're down 17% versus 2021, right? Okay. So this is the missing context. Look how bad a year all of them except Tesla had in 2022. So for Tesla to have been up 47% last year and then another 42% this year is huge. Those are multiplicative. This is an arithmetic relationship, not an additive relationship. For the same reason you can't do what I just described with Honda. You can't add 47 and 42 and say, well, Tesla's up 89%. No, it's more than that, because Tesla grew their base by 47% last year and then grew it again by another 42%. It compounds. So let's scroll on down. And I'll say more than half of automakers' U.S. sales this year are still below 2021 levels. There you go. That's the missing context. This should have been in the article, in my opinion, and wasn't. With only one major automaker up more than 11%, 2023 versus 2021, year-to-date Q3. Tesla, look at this chart, was up 114% Year-to-date Q3 2023 versus year-to-date Q3 2021. How well did the second best grower do from 2021 to 2023? General Motors was up 11%. Yeah. That's good enough for second best to be up 11% versus 2021. And most of the automakers are still down, as I mentioned, with VW down 20%, Honda down 18% with rounding. It's the same example I gave in my mental math earlier. But yeah, 47% growth plus 42% growth equals 114% growth from the 2021 base. But the CAGR would be, 45%-ish or something with compounding. So there you go. That's the missing context. This should have been mentioned in the article. They should have said, hey, Tesla is up by a ton since 2 years ago, and nobody else is, because that is the reality. And I made a few other charts about it, and I tweeted those out this morning, but I'll have to save that for another video because this video is long enough already. I will check back in with my co-host Loki and see if he has anything to say. Nope, he has buried his head under his big blue blankie next to his bun. And with that, I will outro and say, if you've enjoyed today's video, click the like button on whatever platform you're watching this. Thank you to everyone who supports my efforts, whether you do that on Patreon for $4.20 a month or on X for $3 a month, which is only 69 cents per week. I appreciate all of you who support me. Don't support me if you can't afford it. If you've been lucky in life and can afford to, I would welcome your donations to my efforts. And thank you to everyone who joined my YouTube channel, especially my executive producers, Kathy Kitchler and Rebellionaire.com. And I'll see you in the next one.